A hillside in Cornwall, Connecticut is home to a forest of eastern white pines known as the Cathedral Pines. This landmark was once Connecticut's premier stand of tall trees. In fact, the tallest known trees at the time in New England. It was a widely known grove of lofty pines that was easily accessed since a road passed right through it. Sadly, in 1989, a series of powerful windstorms brought the tall pines crashing to the ground. Dead standing hulks, or snags, of the famous pines are still prominent on the hillside today. In the 1970s and 80s, a young Jack Sobin spent a lot of time here.
I remember my first times coming into the stand, filled with exuberance and wonder, looking at the colossal pines. And some of the best parts of the stand are right along the road, surprisingly now, but that's where you could really see the height and the enormity of these trees and the number of them, just walking along the road. And you could actually get back 100 feet or so from a tree and sort of take in the extreme height of these trees. The stand was always a sort of a pilgrimage spot for me. I used to bring friends down here and clients to show them the tall trees, and I did a lot of measuring here back in the late 70s. In fact, I came up with what I thought was the tallest tree in the Northeast at the time. It was 172 feet. Of course, that's gone now. But I measured quite a few over 150, 160 feet. And these were very accurately measured too. I should say they were done with a transit and a 300-foot tape measure, which before the days of laser rangefinders was sort of the state of the art. Still the state of the art, just takes an hour and a half to measure a tree.
The tornadoes of July 1989 zeroed in on these vulnerable giants and ripped them apart. The record pines that had stood sentinel here for over 2 centuries were gone.
There was so much standing timber here before the tornado that when it came down, all the trunks laying in the same direction, there was not enough room on the ground for the timber that was standing. Imagine hundreds of 3-foot diameter pines, 150 plus feet long, all laying in the same direction on the ground. There just wasn't enough room on the ground for all that timber. I was devastated to hear of this tornado, and I immediately came down to check on the damage. And it was a very sad day. I took a few pictures, and as far as I was concerned, the stand was gone. It was completely leveled. I mean, there's a few snags popping up here and there, but it appeared to be completely leveled.
Today, in 2020, the fallen and broken pines are still plainly visible in the woods here. The Nature Conservancy, who owns and manages the preserve, wisely chose to let natural processes play out in this forest. The old pines are slowly decomposing and nourishing the regenerating forest. This is how old-growth forests work. Myriad species of organisms, mammals, plants, birds, fungi, bryophytes, amphibians, insects, reptiles, all thrive in a nature-managed forest habitat.
Now, 30 years later, I am, like the forest, I am renewed, that it's made somewhat of a comeback. All areas are on the fringe of the original stand, but there's still some respectable big old trees in here. And I'm very happy that there's something left here as a remnant of that original forest that I admired so much. Well, this is my first time back here since the tornado came through, and I was pretty depressed when I first saw this place. But now I'm renewed here because there's still some beautiful trees left here. Although none of it in the area that I remember as being the primo tall tree inspiring area. It's probably not up to the scale that it was back before the tornado, but it's nonetheless beautiful.
Jared Lockwood has been measuring the height of many of these trees with a laser.
This white pine is the largest tree by volume. It's 12.5-foot circumference at breast height and almost 148 feet tall.
So here we got a tree that's over 12 feet in circumference, which would have been even big for the stand back then. Most of the trees are probably 3 to 3.5 feet in diameter, as I remember. Although I do remember some trees that were the same height as the main canopy, but they were only like a foot in diameter. And I was just thinking, I'd never seen anything with such a slenderness ratio to it. 1 to 150, 160 feet for a 1 foot diameter tree. It just seemed incredible. It seemed so spindly. It seemed unbelievable that they could stand and be that tall for that diameter. But they were protected among the other giants in the stand. I find it kind of ironic that the best trees we're looking at now are all on the fringe of the original stand, the area where the tallest, most columnar trees stood in the greatest numbers is now the area you can't even walk through because of the debris and the undergrowth.
The cathedral pines that once graced the roadside may be gone, but there are still numerous impressive pines to be found on this hill, as well as other tree species.
This eastern white pine has a little bit over 12-foot circumference at breast height, and it is one of the few survivors here. Today, in 2020, it stands almost 145 feet tall. 10.3 feet circumference at breast height.
These two mature northern red oaks exemplify forest-grown character, clear, columnar trunks with no lower limbs. And this red oak has deeply furrowed bark, which is balding at its base, suggesting this hilltop giant has likely been here for at least 2 centuries. A recently toppled hemlock. Nature never stops recycling. But the prize hemlock of the property proudly stands nearby, nearly 10 feet in circumference and soaring to 134.5 feet. Very respectable for an eastern hemlock. A trail brings you to the hilltop forest, a mix of pine, hemlock, red oak, some sugar maple, black birch, and a few other tree species.
This is the tallest tree that we have recently measured here in the Cathedral Pines. This white pine is 9.33 foot circumference and 151 feet tall.
Bob Leverett has been measuring and documenting old-growth forests for many decades and is a nationally recognized expert on the subject.
When I think of iconic tree species in New England, four come to mind. Sugar maple for sure, because we make maple syrup from its sap, and its beautiful fall colors are attractive to everybody. The American elm, you drive down a corridor with arching canopy. The American chestnut, it was iconic and much beloved. And the fourth, and certainly not last, was the king, the great white pine. It, of course, was a very important source of timber, but to a lot of us, it represents the raw power of nature, probably more than any of the other species. It's the tallest tree species in the eastern United States. The giant that we expect to see or think about in those forests of the past. The eastern white pine is growing back. In the Cathedral Pines, we once measured a tree to 172 feet. My friend Jack Sobin did that. That's pretty much equivalent to what grew in colonial times. There are lots of stands now in the Northeast and in New England and now here in Connecticut where the pines have crept back up into the 150-foot class. And as a consequence, we can walk through those kind of forests and feel that cathedral sense. No species really does that for me like our great white pines, and we're so lucky to have these remnants of them, such as the Cathedral Pines here in Connecticut. We have these places that we can go and capture or recapture some of the feeling of the magic of what those original New England forests were like.
Cornwall, Connecticut can still be proud of its Cathedral Pines forest, with several pines now approaching the lofty heights of the past. And just a short drive down the road is the Ballyhack Preserve, where a loop trail brings you through more impressive pines, and to a stand of these very old white pines, well over 200 years of age.